Master your mind. Right now, at this exact moment, your mind is running a program. And you didn't choose it. You didn't sit down one day and decide to worry constantly. You didn't choose to replay embarrassing moments at 3 in the morning. You didn't choose to catastrophize every uncertain situation. You didn't choose to hear that voice, the one that questions everything, doubts everything, fears everything. It just runs. Automatically. Relentlessly. Without your permission. And here is the most important question you will ever ask yourself. Who is actually in control, you or your mind? Most people never ask that question. They live their entire lives being dragged by a mind they never learned to lead. They call it anxiety, stress, overthinking, bad luck, just the way I am. But the Stoics had a completely different answer. They said, your mind is a tool, the most powerful tool in existence. And like any tool, it can either work for you or destroy you, depending entirely on whether you know how to use it. 2,000 years ago, a group of philosophers in ancient Greece and Rome cracked the code on the human mind. Not with brain scans or therapy sessions. With discipline, observation, and the ruthless application of reason. And what they discovered is so powerful, so practical, so devastatingly effective, that the world's greatest leaders, warriors, emperors, and thinkers have been using it ever since. Today, I'm giving you the complete blueprint. Welcome to Wisdom Unlocked. If this is your first time here, you found the right channel. Every week we go deep into Stoic philosophy and translate it into real, practical tools for the life you're actually living. Subscribe right now. The button is right there. One tap. Do it before we go any further, because what's coming in this video is something you're going to want to come back to again and again. Let's begin. The mind untrained. Before we talk about mastering your mind, we need to understand what an untrained mind actually does. Because most people have no idea how wild, how chaotic, and how genuinely dangerous their own thinking is. The ancient Greeks had a word for the undisciplined mind. They called it akrasia, acting against your own better judgment. Doing the thing you know you shouldn't do. Thinking the thoughts you know are destructive. Feeling the emotions you know are irrational. And doing it anyway. Repeatedly. Sound familiar? You know that scrolling social media at midnight is making you feel worse. You do it anyway. You know that replaying that argument in your head is solving nothing. You do it anyway. You know that worrying about a future that hasn't happened yet is pure waste. You do it anyway. This is akrasia. And the Stoics believed it was the root cause of almost all human suffering. Not circumstance. Not other people. Not bad luck. The untrained mind, running on autopilot, dragging you somewhere you never chose to go. Epictetus, the former slave who became one of the most influential philosophers in history, described the untrained mind like a dog tied to a moving cart. The cart goes where it goes. The dog has two choices, run alongside it willingly, or get dragged. Either way, the dog ends up in the same place. The only difference is the suffering along the way. Most people are the dog getting dragged, and the cart is their own unexamined mind. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. Despite being the most powerful man on earth, he woke up every morning knowing that his greatest battle was not on any military front. It was internal. In his private journals, never meant to be read by anyone, he wrote constant reminders to himself. To think clearly. To act with intention. To not be swept away by impulse or emotion. He wrote, the first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit. The second is to look things in the face and know them for what they are. An untroubled spirit. That is the goal. Not a spirit that never faces trouble, but one that cannot be controlled by it. And here's what makes the Stoic framework so radical. They didn't believe that mastering your mind required years of silent meditation in isolation. They didn't believe it required special conditions or perfect circumstances. They believed it could be done in the middle of ordinary life. In the middle of war, grief, loss, injustice, and chaos. Because if it could only be practiced in calm, it wasn't mastery. It was just comfort. Real mastery is what happens when everything around you is on fire and your mind stays clear. That is what we're building today. The architecture of the mind. To master something, you need to understand how it works. And the Stoics developed a remarkably sophisticated model of the mind, one that modern neuroscience continues to validate. They called it the hegemonikon, the ruling faculty, the part of you that chooses, that reasons, that judges, that decides what something means and how to respond. Think of it as the CEO of your mind. Every thought, every impression, every emotion, it all passes through this faculty before becoming action. Or at least it should. The problem is that most people have a CEO who is asleep at the desk. Impressions come in, events, words, situations, triggers, and instead of passing through reason, they go straight to reaction. Someone says something critical and you feel shame before you've even thought. The stock market drops and you feel panic before you've assessed anything. Plans change and you feel anger before you've considered whether the change matters. Reaction without reason. That is the untrained mind. The Stoics called these automatic reactions passions or disturbances. Not emotions themselves. The Stoics were not robots. They felt deeply. But disturbances, reactions that override reason, that cloud judgment, that pull you somewhere you didn't choose to go. And here is the key insight that changes everything. Between the impression and the reaction, there is a gap. It may be microseconds wide, but it exists. And in that gap lives your freedom. Epictetus described it this way. He said that when an impression arrives, you have one job: to examine it, to interrogate it, to ask, is this impression what it appears to be? Or is my mind distorting it? Because here is the stunning truth the Stoics kept returning to. Most impressions are distortions. The event itself is almost always neutral. It is the meaning your mind assigns to it that creates suffering or peace. Your colleague doesn't greet you in the hallway. The event. Silence. Your mind's interpretation. Rejection, hostility, conspiracy. The Stoic examination. They were distracted. Or they didn't see you. Or they were having their own hard morning. The event was neutral. The suffering was manufactured. This is what Epictetus meant when he wrote the most foundational sentence in all of Stoic philosophy. It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things. Not the things. The judgments. Your mind is a judgment machine. Every second of every day it is assigning meaning, creating narratives, building stories about what everything means about you and about the world. And when those judgments are untrained, unchecked, and unconscious, they run you. When they are examined, challenged, and intentional, you run them. That is the architecture. That is the battlefield. And that is why the Stoics made philosophy not an academic exercise, but a daily martial art of the mind. The first discipline, perception. The Stoics organized the mastery of the mind into 3 disciplines, 3 domains of practice. And the first, the most foundational, is the discipline of perception. Perception is not what happens to you. It is what you make of what happens to you. And the Stoics were ruthlessly committed to getting perception right. Marcus Aurelius called this practice objective seeing, the ability to strip an event of all the emotional color, all the narrative overlay, all the catastrophizing, and see it plainly, as it actually is. Nothing more and nothing less. He had a technique he used constantly throughout his journals. When something threatened to disturb his mind, he would describe it in the most plain, stripped-down language possible. A lavish banquet, dead animals and fermented grape juice. A royale robe, sheeps will dyed with shellfish blood. A military triumph, men marching in formation while crowds cheer. He wasn't doing this to be cynical or to drain the joy from life. He was doing it to see clearly, to remove the false impressions, the glamour, the fear, the awe, the anxiety, and see what was actually there. Because once you see something clearly, it loses its power to distort your thinking. Now apply this to your own life. A criticism from a colleague, a sentence someone said. That's all it is. A financial setback. Numbers changed in an account. A relationship difficulty. 2 people with different needs creating friction. A failed project. An attempt that produced information about what doesn't work. Strip the story. Strip the drama. Strip the meaning your mind is adding automatically. And ask, what is this simply as it actually is? This sounds simple. It is not easy. Because your mind has years of habitual interpretation layered over everything. Your mind has been trained since childhood to react to certain triggers in certain ways. And undoing that training takes daily, deliberate practice. But here is what makes it worth it. Every time you practice objective seeing, you reclaim a piece of your perception from the automatic programming. You create a moment of clarity where there used to be a moment of distortion. And those moments accumulate. Over weeks, months, years, they become your default. Instead of the distortion being your first response, clarity becomes your first response. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is the Stoic perception of obstacles, not as walls, as roads. Every difficulty, every setback, every obstacle contains within it the exact challenge your mind needs to grow stronger. The problem is not the problem. Your perception of the problem is the problem. Change the perception, and you change everything. Here's a practice for this week. Every time something goes wrong, or feels like it's going wrong, before you react, write down 3 things. What actually happened, in the most neutral language possible. What story your mind is adding to it. And what the situation might actually be teaching you. 3 things. 2 minutes. And over time, you'll start to see your own mind's patterns with extraordinary clarity. You'll see the distortions you repeat, the stories you default to, the triggers that send you off course. And once you can see the pattern, you can interrupt it. The second discipline, action. Perception without action is just philosophy. And the Stoics had no interest in philosophy that didn't produce results in the real world. The second discipline is the discipline of action. And it is built on one of the most powerful ideas in human thought. The reserved action. In Latin, hormi meta hupixeresios. The impulse with a reservation. Here's what this means in plain language. The Stoics believed that mastering your mind didn't mean becoming passive or detached from the world. It meant acting with full commitment while simultaneously remaining unattached to the outcome. You do the work. Completely. Wholeheartedly. And you hold the outcome loosely. This sounds paradoxical. Most people think that caring about outcomes is what drives action. And they're right, until the outcome is outside your control. Which, ultimately, it almost always is.
Seneca puis dissuet, omnia aliena sunt, tempus tantum nostrum est.
Everything is foreign to us, only time is truly ours. And Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do what nature requires." Set out immediately if possible. Don't look around to see if people will know about it. Don't expect Plato's ideal state, but be satisfied with even the smallest step forward. The smallest step forward. Not the perfect outcome. Not the guaranteed result. The step. This is the discipline of action in practice. You write the chapter without knowing if the book will be published. You have the hard conversation without knowing how it will be received. You build the business without knowing if it will succeed. You plant the seed without controlling whether it rains. And here's what makes this so powerful for mastering your mind. Most mental suffering comes not from acting, but from the mental paralysis caused by needing a guaranteed outcome before you'll move. Fear of failure keeps people from starting. Fear of judgment keeps people from speaking. Fear of loss keeps people from committing. And underneath all of that fear is the assumption that the outcome is in your control, and therefore your worth is tied to it. If it succeeds, you're enough. If it fails, you're not. The Stoics rejected this completely. Your worth is not in the outcome. It is in the quality of your action, in the integrity of your effort, in the character you bring to the work. Outcomes happen in the world outside you. Character happens inside you. And only one of those is truly yours. Epictetus made this viscerally clear with a simple analogy. He said, "The archer controls the draw of the bow, the steadiness of the aim, the release of the arrow. That is his domain. The wind, the target's movement, the arrow's path after release, that is not his domain. And a wise archer knows the difference. He gives everything to what is his, and releases what is not. This is the discipline of action. Give everything to the process. Release the outcome. Repeat. And watch what happens to your mind when you live this way. The anxiety that comes from needing things to go a certain way begins to lift. Not because things start going better, but because you've stopped betting your peace of mind on things you cannot control. There is a quote from Marcus Aurelius that I return to constantly. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." Strength. Not peace through avoidance. Not calm through distance. Strength. Active, present, engaged strength. From the clarity of knowing exactly what is yours and exactly what isn't. The third discipline, will. If the discipline of perception is about how you see, and the discipline of action is about how you move, then the third discipline is about how you endure. This is the discipline of will. And it is the deepest, most demanding, and most transformative of the three. The Stoics had a concept at the heart of this discipline that I want you to sit with. It is called amor fati, love of fate, love of what is, love of what happens, not acceptance, not tolerance, not resignation, love. This is where most people initially push back. They hear love what happens and they think, am I supposed to love tragedy? Am I supposed to love injustice? Am I supposed to love loss and failure and pain? And the answer is, not in a naive way. Not in a way that denies reality. Not in a way that pretends everything is fine when it isn't. But in the way that a blacksmith loves fire. The blacksmith doesn't love fire because it's comfortable. He loves it because he knows what it produces. He knows that without the fire, there is no steel. Without the heat, there is no strength. Without the pressure, there is no blade. The discipline of will says, everything that happens to you is material. It is raw material for the person you are becoming. And the quality of that person depends entirely on what you do with what you're given. Marcus Aurelius faced plague, war, betrayal, the death of children, the decline of the empire he spent his life trying to protect. And in his journals, in his private, unguarded writing, he did not curse fate. He worked with it. He asked constantly not why is this happening, but what does this make possible? What does this make possible? That question is the entire discipline of will compressed into 5 words. Not why me. What now? Not this shouldn't be happening. What can I do with this? Not this is too hard. What is this building in me? Seneca wrote, per aspera ad astra, through hardship to the stars. He wasn't being poetic. He was describing a mechanism. The mechanism by which suffering transforms into strength, if and only if you engage with it rather than run from it. The discipline of will is also about what the Stoics called apatheia, not apathy in the modern sense of not caring, but equanimity, the stable, unshakable foundation that allows you to feel everything without being destroyed by anything. The Stoics felt deeply. Marcus Aurelius grieved. Seneca mourned. Epictetus suffered. They were not stones. They were human beings with full emotional lives. But they had cultivated an inner foundation so solid that their emotions moved through them without becoming them. They could feel grief without being grief. Feel fear without being fear. Feel anger without being anger. That is not suppression. That is mastery. And it is built through one practice above all others. Voluntary discomfort. The Stoics deliberately put themselves in uncomfortable situations. Seneca, one of the richest men in Rome, regularly fasted for days, slept on the floor, wore simple clothing, not as performance, as training. He wrote about this practice directly. He said that by voluntarily experiencing what you fear, hunger, cold, hardship, you discover something transformative. It is endurable. You are stronger than you thought. The thing you feared loses its teeth. And once you truly know in your body and in your experience, that you can endure hardship, the fear of hardship no longer runs your life. This is the foundation of an unshakable will, not the absence of difficulty, the proven knowledge that you can meet difficulty and survive it. Epictetus had the most extreme version of this practice. He had been a slave. He had lived at the absolute mercy of another person's will. And what he emerged with, what that experience forged in him, was a will so free, so unbreakable, so sovereign, that he became one of the most liberated human beings in recorded history. He wrote, "Seek not that the things which happen should happen as you wish, but wish the things which happen to be as they are, and you will have a tranquil flow of life. Wish the things that happen to be as they are, not as you want them to be, as they are." This is the full expression of the discipline of will, and it is not surrender. It is the most powerful position a human being can occupy. Fully present, fully engaged, fully committed, and fully at peace with what is. The Stoic mind in the modern world. Let's bring this home. Because it's one thing to talk about Marcus Aurelius ruling an empire. It's another to talk about you, right now, living your actual life in 2024. And I want to be honest with you. The world we live in today is specifically designed to undermine everything the Stoics built. Social media is an impression machine. It floods your hegemonicon with 1,000 stimuli per minute, each one carefully engineered to provoke a reaction before reason has a chance to intervene. Outrage, envy, fear, comparison, désir. All of it designed not to help you think, but to prevent you from thinking. The attention economy profits from your distraction. Every notification, every scroll, every algorithm-fed piece of content is competing for the one resource the Stoics said was most precious: your focused attention. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." But the present is exactly what modern technology is designed to pull you away from. Into the past, through nostalgia and regret. Into the future, through anxiety and anticipation. Into other people's lives, through comparison and vicarious experience, and into a version of yourself that is reactive, distracted, and easily manipulated. This is why Stoic practice is not just relevant today. It is urgent, because the same faculties the Stoics trained, attention, perception, judgment, will, are the exact faculties under attack every single day. And here's what I want you to understand about mastering your mind in the modern world. It does not require you to delete all your apps and move to a monastery. It requires you to bring awareness, deliberate, trained awareness, to how your mind is being used. Every time you pick up your phone out of boredom rather than intention, that is your mind running on autopilot. Every time you find yourself in a comparison spiral after looking at someone else's life, that is an untrained impression taking you somewhere you didn't choose. Every time you feel your mood shift based on a comment, a like count, or someone else's highlight reel, that is the path the Stoics warned about. The antidote is not to stop feeling. The antidote is to practice the pause, the gap, the moment between stimulus and response where reason can step in. And you can practice this with the smallest things. Before you open your phone, pause. Ask, why am I opening this? What do I intend to do here? Before you respond to a provocative message, pause. Ask, is my first reaction the response I actually want to give? Before you engage with content that makes you feel worse, pause. Ask, is this serving my hegemonicon, my ruling faculty? Or is it hijacking it? These pauses are not lost time. They are the entire practice. They are the gap where your freedom lives. The Stoics built their philosophy in a world of different challenges: political instability, plague, war, corruption, public execution. But the human mind they were training is the same human mind you have. The impressions were different. The mechanism is identical. And the practice works. It has been working for 2,000 years. Building the daily practice. We've covered the philosophy. We've covered the 3 disciplines. Now let's talk about what you actually do. Today, tomorrow, every day. Because mastering your mind is not a weekend project. It is a daily practice, a way of moving through life. And the Stoics were deeply practical about this. They built their practice into the structure of every single day. Morning, the preparation. Before you engage with the world, engage with your mind. 10 minutes. No phone. No news. No external input. First, anticipate. Think about what the day holds and where your mind will be tested. Where might impatience arise? Where might fear show up? Where might you be tempted to react rather than respond? See it coming. Prepare your response in advance. The Stoics called this premeditatio, foreseeing the challenges of the day so they don't catch you off guard. Second, ground yourself in the dichotomy of control. What is actually yours today? Your attention, your effort, your choices, your character. Everything else, the outcome of meetings, how people respond, whether plans work out, that belongs to the world. Give your energy only to what is yours. Third, set your intention. Not a goal, a way of being. Today I will respond rather than react. Today I will see obstacles as material. Today I will act with integrity regardless of outcome. 10 minutes. Every morning. Before the world comes in. Midday, the reset. Somewhere in the middle of your day, things will go sideways. They always do. This is not a problem. This is the practice presenting itself. When it happens, one breath. One question. Is what I'm about to do, say, or think serving my highest self or my lowest impulse? One breath. One question. That's the midday practice. It sounds almost too simple, but try it consistently for 1 week. Apply it to every moment of friction, every triggered reaction, every moment of stress. And watch how many times it changes your course before you've gone somewhere you didn't want to go. Evening. The review. Before sleep, the Stoics reviewed the day. Not to punish themselves, but to learn. Seneca wrote about this practice with particular detail. He would go through the day's events and ask 3 things. Where did I act against my own values today? Not with shame, with curiosity. What triggered the departure? What can I learn from it? Where did I act in alignment with my values? Where did reason win? Where did the training show? Acknowledge this. It matters. Progress needs to be recognized or it won't continue. What is the one thing I want to bring into tomorrow? Not a resolution, an intention. One thing. Specific. Honest. 5 minutes. Every night. And over time, this practice becomes the most accurate mirror you've ever held up to yourself. Because you cannot change what you cannot see. And the evening review makes your own patterns visible in a way that nothing else does. The weekly practice. Once a week, Sunday works well. Spend 30 minutes reading Stoic philosophy directly. Not summaries. The source material. Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. Seneca's Letters.
Epictetus' Discours hors enchiridion.
Read slowly. Stop when something strikes you. Write it down. Sit with it. Apply it to something specific in your own life. This is how the philosophy gets into your bones. Not through passive consumption, but through active engagement. Wrestling with ideas. Testing them against experience. Letting them challenge you. The Stoics didn't just read philosophy. They lived it. And that is the invitation. The unshakable mind. We are near the end of this video. And I want to leave you with something that I think is the most important truth in all of Stoic philosophy. The truth that sits underneath every practice, every discipline, every idea we've explored today. You already have everything you need to master your mind. Not when circumstances improve. Not when life gets easier. Not when you've read more books or accumulated more wisdom. Right now, as you are, where you are. Epictetus had nothing. By the standards of the world, he had less than nothing. He was owned by another person. And he was free in the only way that ultimately matters. Marcus Aurelius had everything. And he knew that none of it, not the power, not the wealth, not the empire, could give him what he had to cultivate himself. An untroubled mind. A disciplined perception. A will that could not be broken by what the world did or did not deliver. The unshakable mind is not a destination you arrive at. It is a direction you commit to. And every single day, every morning preparation, every midday pause, every evening review, is a step in that direction. Some days you will take that step with grace. Other days you will stumble. The Stoics stumbled. Marcus Aurelius wrote his journals precisely because he kept falling short of his own ideals. And he kept going. Every morning. Without self-pity. Without giving up. That persistence, that daily recommitment, is itself the practice. That is what mastery actually looks like. Not perfection.
Persistance.
Seneca wrote, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life." Each day a separate life. Each morning a fresh start. Each moment an opportunity to choose reason over impulse, clarity over distortion, intention over reaction. That is the Stoic life. And it is available to you completely, fully, right now, the moment you choose it. If this video gave you something real today, a shift, an idea, a single moment of genuine clarity, do one thing. Subscribe to Wisdom Unlocked. Right now. Hit that button. Turn on the notification bell. Because every week on this channel we go deeper into the most powerful philosophy ever developed for the human mind, and we make it practical, real, and applicable to your actual life. This is a community of people who have chosen wisdom over worry, intention over impulse, growth over comfort. And there is a seat here for you. Subscribe. And come back next week. Because we are just getting started. Stay disciplined. Stay present. Stay free.